We are obsessed with constant movement. And yet we've never felt more stuck. We keep upgrading everything. Phones, apps, calendars. Even our downtime has notifications. But what if the breakthrough you've been chasing isn't hiding in a productivity app? What if it's sitting right there, on the edge of a rusted tailgate, in the cooling air, at the end of an ordinary day? Because I'm going to tell you something that sounds too simple to be true. And at the end of this, I'll share the one question that changed how I make every hard decision. But first, you need to feel why it works. Let's talk about the invisible weight we carry now. Not bricks. Not lumber. Not a toolbox. Something heavier. The weight of being reachable. Every single second. Back in the day, if you weren't home, you weren't home. If you were driving, you were driving. If you were eating dinner, you were eating dinner. Now, you can be sitting at the kitchen table and still be at work. You can be at your kid's game and still be on call. You can be lying in bed and still be behind. And your mind pays for it. Because constant notifications don't just interrupt your day. They fragment your thinking. You start living in tiny slices. 30 seconds here. A minute there. Always switching. Always checking. And after a while, you forget what it feels like to have a full thought. A deep thought. The kind that used to come when you were mowing the lawn, or washing the car, or sitting on the porch. Before your pocket started buzzing like a beehive. I didn't realize how loud my life had gotten until one Thursday in October, when my phone died on me. I'd been running nonstop for weeks. My boss had offered me a promotion, more money, bigger title. But it meant 60-hour weeks and travel every other Monday. My wife was 7 months pregnant with our second, and I had 5 days to give him an answer. That Thursday, I pulled into my driveway around 6:30. Engine off. Reached for my phone. Dead battery. Normally I'd go inside and plug it in, but I was too tired to move. So I dropped the tailgate. That familiar clunk. A little stiff. A little tired. Like me. I sat on the edge. The sun was low. Everything had that gold tint you only get in October. The engine ticking as it cooled. And for the first time in months, I heard nothing. No pings. No vibrations. No one needing anything. Just the neighbor's sprinkler. A dog barking 2 streets over. The sound of a world that wasn't asking me to perform. And in that silence, something I'd been pushing down for weeks floated to the surface. I already knew my answer. I'd known it for days. I was going to say no. Not because the money didn't matter, but because I could feel, right there, sitting on cold metal, that saying yes would cost me something I couldn't get back. It didn't come like fireworks. It came like the sky after a storm. Quiet. Clear. Obvious. I sat there maybe 15 minutes. When I went inside, I felt like I'd been gone a week. I told my boss no that Friday morning. He was surprised. I wasn't. That was the first time. But here's where it gets interesting. Because what happened next changed everything about how I end my days. A physical place can become an anchor. Not because it's magical, Because it's consistent. The tailgate isn't glamorous. It's not curated. It's not filtered. It's real. It's got dents from real work. Rust from real years. It doesn't pretend to be new. And somehow, that makes it the only honest place in my day. When you sit there often enough, your body learns the ritual. It learns. This is where we come down. This is where we stop performing. This is where we exhale. But here's the part nobody tells you. Because it doesn't sell anything. Stillness is not laziness. Stillness is a skill. And at first, your mind fights it. You sit down and suddenly everything floods in. That email. That call. That bill. That stupid thing you said 3 weeks ago. It's like shaking a snow globe. Everything swirling. But if you don't reach for the phone, if you just stay, eventually, the snow settles. And then clarity shows up. Now, I need to tell you about the second time. Because the first time could have been a fluke. This is the one that made me a believer. 3 months later, my buddy calls me on a Tuesday night. He's got a side business, pressure washing, decks, driveways, that sort of thing. He wants me to go in on it with him. 50-50. Good money. I trust him. But something didn't sit right, and I couldn't figure out what. I ran the numbers. They worked. I asked my wife. She said it's up to me. I made a pros and cons list. Pros won. But I still felt stuck. So that night, I did what I'd been doing since October. I grabbed a beer. Dropped the tailgate. Saturday. No phone. No list. No forcing. 7 minutes in, it hit me. It wasn't about the business. It was about the friendship. I knew, and I'd been pretending not to know, that if money got tight between us, I'd lose the one guy I actually call when things get hard. The answer was no. And the second I let myself hear it, my chest loosened like I'd been holding my breath for a week. I called him the next morning. Said I loved the idea, but I wasn't the right partner for it. We grabbed lunch that Friday. Still call him every week. That's when I realized. This wasn't just a nice habit. This was a decision-making tool. Disguised as doing nothing. And here's why it works. Not woo-woo, just how your brain is built. Your mind cannot do its deepest work while it's being interrupted every 45 seconds. Some problems don't respond to force. The harder you push, the more stuck you get. But when you stop forcing, your brain starts connecting dots in the background. It's why the best ideas show up in the shower, or on a long drive, or walking the dog at dusk. Stillness gives your brain room to finish what it's been trying to process all day. And that's the difference between being passive and being present. Passive is scrolling to escape. Present is staying with the question, without demanding an instant answer, letting the answer find you. And that brings me to what I promised you at the start. Every evening, or close to it, I sit on that tailgate. 10 minutes. Sometimes 15. No phone. No agenda. And I ask myself one question. What do I already know that I'm pretending not to know? That's it. One honest question. And I don't force an answer. I let it come when it comes. The promotion. The partnership. A hard conversation with my dad last spring that I'd been avoiding for 2 years. Every single one of those, the answer was already inside me. I just needed a place quiet enough to hear it. Now, I'm not telling you to buy a truck. And I'm not romanticizing the past. I'm saying this. You need a small sanctuary in your week. A place where you are not performing. Where the whole point is stillness. Maybe it's a tailgate. Maybe it's a porch step. Maybe it's a folding chair in the garage with the door cracked open. Maybe it's your back patio after the kids go down. The location matters less than the ritual. Here's what mine looks like, no app required. Same time most evenings. Right after work, before I go inside. The phone stays in the truck. Not in my pocket on silent. In the truck. I sit and do nothing on purpose. Watch the light change. Feel my breathing slow. Let the snow globe settle. Then I ask one honest question. Sometimes it's the big one. What do I already know that I'm pretending not to know? Sometimes it's simpler. What am I carrying that I can put down? Or, what actually matters this week? I don't force an answer. Some nights nothing comes. That's fine. The quiet is enough. It's funny. For all the technology we've gained, the things so many of us are starving for, is something we used to get for free. A quiet moment. A clear head. A life that feels like it belongs to us again. The best sanctuary isn't a retreat you book online. It isn't something you have to earn. Sometimes it's just the back of an old truck. With a little rust on it. And enough silence. To finally hear yourself think. If you've got a place like that. A tailgate, a porch, a spot in the garage. Drop it in the comments. I want to know where you go. And if you don't have one yet, maybe tonight's the night you find it. Because the answer you've been forcing might already be waiting. Right where the day ends and the silence begins.